Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Left Leg Fight Club. So tonight, this is a live stream where I'm going to be chatting with a gentleman called Ian Taylor. He is a avid mountain bike rider. He is a mountain bike coach. He's a racer, and he is very good on a bicycle. So I would like to bring into the stream now the one, the only, Mr. Ian Taylor.
Hello, mate.
Ian.
Okay?
How are you doing?
Very good. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, thank you. So what sort of day you had today? You all right?
Mate, it's been pretty good, to be fair. Thank you for the warm welcome.
No problem, no problem.
What were we doing? We went a bit of gym, had a day off today, so I wasn't on the bike. So went to the gym this morning, went for a swim, and just had a nice, relaxing day, to be fair. Can't grumble.
Cool. So yeah, as I touched on, obviously, into the bit of a mad, brief introduction about yourself. Obviously, I did emphasise that. Obviously, you ride mountain bikes. You are a mountain bike coach. Some people might not know what a mountain bike coach is, and some people think, well, what do you need a coach for a mountain bike for? Me myself thought that for a while until I did come and see Proride MTB, which obviously you work for and you are a coach for, under the wing of Ollie Morris, who owns a business and does coaching some pretty big names within the mountain biking industry, and is a racer himself. So basically, if you just like to touch on where and how you started biking, really.
Oh, good question. Probably goes back good maybe 20 years, I reckon. Was always a pretty sporty kid, and just bikes was something I just did as well as like the football and the rugby. So started way back. I can still remember the first time my dad pushed me away on the old stabilizers in a grassy park near where I used to live. So started back then, and probably started on the road, like cycling stuff. Where I used to live in North Yorkshire, so we used to do like I'm not sure what night of the week it used to be, but it was like I want to say maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday, and there's like an old race car circuit, and we used to do like races around there as like kids. Right. So started back then, and did mainly stuff on the road bike then, and then kind of went off the boil with it, I suppose, through kind of young teenage years, and played the football, the rugbies, kind of anything I could really do, before picking it up at probably 15, 16, and then had a hardtail, rode that for a few years, or maybe a bit younger actually. But yeah, got a hardtail, and then just began to work my way through to kind of racing enduros, and then that kind of stemmed and went from kind of local races to much bigger races, and then that kind of brought me then through into coaching. So yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of my bikes, and yeah, still just as fun now as they ever have been.
Because I mean, as you can see here, we can obviously still we can see here quite clearly that just emphasising on the fact that you, like you said, your dad got you off the stabilisers. We can see that you still own the bike that your dad got you off the stabilisers on.
You've managed to find this photo then.
Yeah. We got to have a bit of a laugh. We've got to have a bit of a laugh,
I like the flex on the front wheel and the chain hanging off.
Yeah, you definitely know how to give some advice. What do I say? I don't know. Well, some good cornering techniques there. You know what I mean? That attack position.
It's not bad, is it, mate? We can a bit of the aero drag's not too good.
Not really at all. Not really at all. So basically, then obviously you've talked about your biking career and everything else. When you talk how you got into biking, and obviously he's on the road bike, and then obviously you went to mountain biking and started from there, really. So I mean, what got you into sort of like the racing and then to move into coaching from there, really? What was it that got you there?
Yeah, I suppose the racing was always the natural progression for me. Competitive kid, no matter like what I did, I always tried to be the best at it. So that was always like a natural, I think that was always going to happen, like the natural progression was to just get into racing and see how I fared against other people. And did that for probably 5 years, I reckon, 5-6 years. And then kind of worked my way up from like a junior to, at points racing in elite in the UK. So that was good. Lots of good memories, few not so good memories, I'm sure. But yeah, kind of then was living up in the Tweed Valley, so like Innerleithen and Glentress sort of area, for the last 3 years that I was racing, which was brilliant. But the way I kind of got through into coaching then was actually I had begun to probably lose the enjoyment a little bit. I think I burnt the candle a little bit at both ends. So I think maybe certain things were starting to play on my mind a bit, and the fun started to stop for probably the first time ever with the bike. So yeah, that's actually going to be one of my last races. That'll be a Tweed Love race up at Innerleithen. So that would be my last.
Is that a Mondrake you on there? Is it?
No, that was an Intense. That's a Intense carbine. It's kind of like a long travel 29er. It was like 150, 160. It was some bike, to be fair. It was very, very good. Probably one of my favorite bikes I've had. But
is this your current bicycle at the moment or not?
No, that's not my current bike. That's I am back on an Intense now, but I'm on basically like a redefined version of that, which is good. Yeah, it's been really nice to get back on a bike that I had so much enjoyment on. But no, so it kind of went off the boil with the racing, shall we say? Just wasn't quite cutting it for me. Wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought as much as I used to, or saying. So then I kind of knew I was coming home from Scotland, moving back home to go and start university, and did a few years there in Cardiff, studying sports science. And at the end of the season that I finished racing, I bumped into Ollie Morris, who is my now boss, probably for the first time. I think we've like met in passing before that, but I didn't really know him, and I don't think he really knew me.
Not a bad boss to have, really.
No, he's not. I don't know if he's watching or not, but I'll not say too many nice things even. But no, he's been brilliant. Can't speak highly enough of him. But yeah, we bumped into each other at the little.
Definitely a very admirable bloke. Definitely a very nice guy. I've got to say that myself. I mean, I've had quite a few coaching sessions with Ollie myself before. Obviously, Ollie sort of jumped onto bigger things, and then obviously I had quite a few sessions with yourself, you know what I mean, which have been absolutely fantastic. But we'll touch on that sort of a bit later on.
Yeah, no. So no, he's top bloke. Can't speak highly enough of him, and I think he probably knows that. So no, we bumped into each other then properly at like I'm not quite sure. They were like the Peddler Bikeaway, the shop at the Forest of Dean. They organise little summer races, like just tiny little evening shop races. And me and Ollie just got chatting based off basically him beating me one week and then I beating him the next, and we just went tit for tat for a couple of weeks, which was brilliant. And
I remember the conversations we had on coaching sessions.
Yeah, and and so it started from then. And I think just off the bat of that, I think I've always liked to think I would be okay at coaching, and it's something that I think I would always enjoy. So I think I reached out to him probably at the back of one of those races. I reckon it must have been one of those races that I spoke to him, and just kind of stemmed a conversation from there. And I think went kind of quiet for a couple of years, which was fine because I was at uni, it made no odds, and then kind of got a surprise text or an email from him just as I was about to finish uni, asking if I wanted to come on board, and the timing worked brilliantly. He's a great bloke, like great company. So yeah, timing worked well. Still working for him to this day, and having as much fun as I did when I started. So that's kind of how I got into it. A bit of a long-winded story, but yeah, it's a pretty organic, story. It's a good story.
Yeah, really good. So I mean, obviously on the back of explaining how you got into the coaching, I mean, would you like to give some of the people like some information on sort of what you think? What would be the right word? I mean, I could give my opinion. So basically, I think really I'm going to give my opinion first, and then I'm going to ask you to sort of elaborate on that. Is that okay?
Of course it is. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, I myself, I ride a Geometron, which quite a lot of people know, and I wasn't confident on the bike. I didn't know how to handle the bike, and obviously, but from a point set of from sort of like going from what I would call sort of normal geometry, which obviously you sort of big, sort of, your big sort of boutique brands, sort of, like you sort of like, I don't know, well, more, I'll probably say sort of more sort of commercial sort of brands, like, which are found in sort of quite sort of more high street sort of bike orientated shops. I'm sure you'd agree, like sort of like your Trek, your Scott, just to name a few, you know what I mean? They sort of have like sort of like one sort of generic sort of geometry, with sort of similar measurements on sort of head angles and reach and everything else, bottom bracket height, and then obviously there was that phase some sort of years ago where it all sort of went longer, lower, slacker, emphasis on head angles and everything else, to make the bike sort of more sort of gnarly, but also sort of more fun to ride, I would say personally myself. You know what I mean? That's what I found. But obviously, I was lacking the confidence in riding that bike and knowing how to ride that bike properly and with body positioning, everything on the bike really. And the emphasis of obviously talking to like Ollie, having some coaching sessions with Ollie, yourself, and then obviously the guys from Geometron. You know what I mean? It's sort of like with the progression, and obviously all three of you guys sort of working together. I became more confident riding the bike. I was more, it's not just the case you go down to your local BMX track or you build, like when you was a kid, you build a ramp and you just jump off a ramp over some bricks or whatever. You know what I mean? There's certain techniques which do actually work and they are beneficial, to use. From obviously how you can ride the bike with not pedaling it so much, how you can ride the bike and do certain maneuvers on it without running risk of hurting yourself. With using jumping as an example, how you can go around corners quicker by not sort of braking on corners, because it can obviously you lose less grip. All this sort of stuff is what you predominantly sort of teach people on how to sort of ride their bike properly, depending on how they want to ride it and what terrain they want to ride and what they want to do and where they do want to ride. Do you know what I mean? That's what I found. I mean, would you like to elaborate on that and just give us obviously how you go about doing that with people? I mean, obviously, obviously person to person differs depending on age, confidence, bike size, weight, etc., setup throughout the whole thing. I mean, just give us like a sort of brief outline of really where you would start with, say, someone to where, just say where you start and how you progress with them really, I think would probably be the best thing,
and I think, like you say, it's there's 1,000 different variables of rider, bikes, conditions, etc. So it's trying to bring everything under probably a safer, more confident kind of umbrella term, I suppose. So trying to make sure that the rider firstly leaves and they've had a good session, they've enjoyed themselves. I think that's priority. It doesn't matter what you teach them. If they've not enjoyed it, then it might not click that well and they might not come back. So number one is probably fun, and then probably number two is, as boring as it might sound, is probably safety, and actually reducing the amount of potential crashes that these people can have by implementing some safe techniques. And they're not some of them are probably a bit drastic feeling, as I'm sure you've experienced, and some of them are actually pretty common sense based. So like for me, I think the number one thing is ensuring that the people that we coach have a strong platform and they're in a strong position. Now, whatever that position looks like, again, between the difference between me and you, there will be a difference, and again, somebody else. So that position can look different, but they will share similarities. But it needs to be a position in which they can feel confident and probably safe in. And normally the two of them work kind of hand in hand. So for me, it's about fun primarily, but then sending them away with some nice safe habits in which they can build confidence, like I say, in a safe manner. I think that's the thing for me. No matter who you coach, you need to make sure that rider is safe and they're happy. And if the two of those work, then I think you're in a good place.
I suppose really it's almost like, I think, and what you touched on there, with especially what you touched on with what you're saying about gaining confidence and safety, and also being able to ride that bike. I suppose the nearest example I can put to what you're saying is more or less like teaching someone how to drive a car, like a driving instructor sort of thing.
It probably is. Now, I'm no driving instructor, and I'm a very average driver. But yeah, I imagine it's one of these things that until you've done it and until you've built that muscle memory, it does feel weird and it's odd and it's clunky. But probably as you're beginning to find out off the back of our last sessions, we've become from a place where everything was kind of big adjustments, and I'm sure with Ollie they were even bigger in terms of like what you carried on, what you did, sorry, at the very beginning. So, and then you've kind of come from this place where it's like these big adjustments, and now we're moving into the fine tuning. I can't remember what we were talking about last time, but I think it was like light on the hands, wasn't it? It was something as simple as being lighter on our hands to prevent the amount of fatigue that we were getting. So quite a fine topic, and yeah, we're just ticking things off as we go and making sure that your overall riding continues to be enjoyable, fun, and actually for you now it's probably, obviously when you come back it'll be probably let's go back to basics a little bit, but prior to that it was, you know, building confidence, building speed, and again just making sure that you are happy on the bike.
I definitely think that I mean I'm going to be switching my riding up a little bit to what I was doing before, only because I can't risk maybe like, you know, doing excessive damage to my knee, but even though I know that my leg is stronger than what it was, but you know, there is that balance which I'm going to be sort of going to. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, even though I have told my missus, and you know, I know my missus probably won't be watching this now, that I wouldn't sort of do this steep techie stuff ever again. I mean, there might be a point where I would go back to it, so it would start off with sort of light trail riding really, and just a bit of XC sort of stuff, but you know, single track sort of stuff. But it's still on the bike and it's still having fun. So that's, to me, is just like the main thing. I mean, it does like literally. I mean, I know it's a bit of a shit pun, you know, it does cripple me every time, even though I'm a bit sort of crippled now being on the crutches and like, you know, the emphasis of how the left leg fight club started, you know. Going in the garage and looking at my bike and thinking, oh, when can I get back on it? But I'm going to go into that on another video.
Nice. Yeah, well, you'll be back in no time. And again, if you come back to us and we'll do stuff, we'll just tailor it to where you are. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like, you'll just be a slightly different version of yourself, and then we'll just modify the session to suit that and suit your new aims when you come back.
I mean, I have got some information which I am going to be sharing on the channel in the next couple of days about biking.
Nice.
I'm not going to share it here, but
I won't ask.
Yeah. No, it's good, really good, really good.
Mega.
It's really positive. You know what I mean? Really positive.
Good.
So yeah, so something come about last week, but
nice.
yeah, I'll go into that another time. I hope you don't mind me asking. I've just had a guy called Liam Snake basically wants to ask a question, and he states, "We're interested to hear how Ian finds a balance between riding for coaching and riding for leisure."
Yeah, that's a very good question. It was partly the reason I stopped racing back in the day was because I probably didn't give myself enough time to just go and ride for my bike for myself. So I think with coaching, that was something I was always mindful of, was to make sure that I balance my time and actually give myself enough time to just go and do my hobby, if that makes sense. So luckily working for Ollie, he's mint, people know that, and he's very flexible with my time. So we've penciled in a couple like weeks off here, weeks off there, and it just means that I can go away and ride my bike for myself again, and actually probably zone out of the coaching mindset that I probably find myself in quite a lot, and actually just go and enjoy it again. So it's a tricky little balance at times. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, there's some days where you know, maybe you kind of feel like going for a ride, but by the time you finish work, you may be tired. But I think that comes with the territory of just work in general, doesn't it? Like, that doesn't matter what you do. I think, that's just part and parcel.
That's definitely correct. I've definitely got to agree with you there. I've definitely got to agree with you there. Yeah, it goes with any job really, any territory. Do you want to go out and do your things what you enjoy doing? You know, regardless of whether you do the same thing. You know, it'd be like someone who teaches swimming. You know, using that as an example. Would they want to go out after they've been teaching swimming all day for a swim themselves? You know.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Some days I do, and some days I'll go out and ride for a couple of hours after work. And some days I'll go home and do absolutely nothing for the evening. But it just depends on the day. But I think, like I say, I've got a really good environment around me. Got great, like Ollie's great, and Joe, Ollie's partner, who does a lot of the kind of the admin side of the stuff for coaching. She's brilliant as well. So for me to snag a day off here and there, or or take a bit of time is so easy. So I'm really lucky in that. I know not everybody probably is as lucky as that, just to take time off like that. So
Yeah.
they're great with me, and I can take time, as and when I feel I need to. If I'm needing a break, I can say I need a break, and they'll be so understanding. So, I'm lucky with my surroundings that I can. But in terms of just making it fun, I think, when I go for a bike ride, it's pretty common that I'll not think about anything coaching related sometimes, unless I've got an aim in mind. But sometimes I will literally just go out, no knee pads, just go for a super mellow ride and just go and like enjoy, just try and ride something different, I think. So yeah, that's probably the way I juggle it.
I mean, obviously, I'd just like to show the people, obviously this is Proride, this is who you work for. You're on all like sort of platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and then there's obviously a website. So obviously, would you just like to elaborate a bit more on how they can sort of book in with you and all whatever else and all that sort of stuff? Like, what's the sort of way it happens, really?
To be honest with you, you can do it kind of traditionally on the website, or I think a few of it's starting to come through, probably more through like Instagram messages and kind of through that sort of way. But most of the time, you go onto the website, there's a huge range of courses, whether it's kind of our progress course, which is our kind of I wouldn't call it a beginner, but it's like a fundamentals course almost. It's build from the ground up in the right way and make sure that we're in a safe, confidence, inspiring way to do so. So like, you go from your progress to your steep tech courses, your airtime course, which is just jumps. There's a huge range. So for most of the time, you book on the website, and you'll go through to Jo, which is Ollie's partner. She is brilliant, super efficient. Probably keeps Ollie in check, no doubt. Keeps me probably on the straight and narrow as well. So she's brilliant, and so she will pencil things in. She'll have all of our calendars. That's me, and Rachel White, who also works with Proride, and then she will probably just pick the best coach for the day, or who can work that day, and it kind of goes from there. But normally the way it will come about is that people will have a few ideas of what they'd like to cover, and then we will take that, park it to one side, and make sure that the basics are probably done right first, and then build up from there and make sure that people are getting firstly what they want, but also not missing anything fundamental that's actually probably causing more harm than good. But yeah, we can be as diverse, different. Like we can kind of do whatever really needs to be done under the umbrella of mountain biking, as long as we have a little bit of information before. So it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. I think, like you say, I think the thing is as well, like you say, you cover literally everything and anything. It's literally as long as like the main thing is it's done in a safe practice, which is obviously the main thing which you do promote. And I myself, I can't stress the levels. Like, I mean, the levels from where my riding come on before I had this accident, and even Sam elaborated that last week, from where I come on from where I was first time around, like what I touched on earlier, to where I am now. You know what I mean? Is where I am sort of where I was, it's come on loads, you know what I mean? I know some people might think, it costs this, it costs that, but at the end of the day, it's like, to me, it's like what you're paying for is you're paying for someone else's knowledge to learn how to basically more or less be better at something what you want to do, if that makes sense.
Completely. And I think you touched on it earlier, didn't you? You said, you talked about how having a bike that suited you, so your G1, working with Marcel, Sam, those boys down the road, and then working with us on your position. I think the two of those go hand in hand. You speak to Ollie, and when he works with the top riders that he does, everything's got to click together. And I think that's the thing. You could have the best bike set up in the world, but if your position's no good and your actual riding technique's no good, you're going to have a pretty low ceiling before you can start to push through it and probably start making mistakes. So
definitely so. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I remember one of the first times I had my Geometron and I went out riding with Marcel, and I mean, even nowadays I see it on some of the YouTube videos where people are riding stupidly steep stuff and they're just like hanging their ass off the back seat. And you just think, Jesus Christ. I mean, I remember watching a YouTube video, maybe 3 months ago. I know it was obviously been since I've done my leg, and there was this guy just riding some steep stuff down somewhere, and he was literally hanging off the back of the bike, and there was just so many like comments in the thing. And I said, look, dude, you need to get over the front of the bike, just like sort of like feather the front brake, and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't get no comments back, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you know, the guy just didn't really respond to the comments, and you know, but that's down to him. You know, it's up to him how he wants to ride his bike. But clearly, from what I see, he wasn't riding it correctly. You know, it was just absolutely horrendous. So I was sort of like, you know, sort of give him a bit of guidance and stuff, because he wanted sort of like people to sort of, you know, a bit of advice from what people were saying and stuff. So
yeah, no, for sure.
I can definitely, I mean, me personally, I can definitely recommend Proride mountain biking coaching. Like you say, there is a very sort of, you know, there is a diverse sort of way that you do it. You know what I mean? You know, I think basically from what you touched on back there, I mean, I know that I haven't had no sessions with Rachel. I have met her a couple of times, you know what I mean? But I also know that your sort of like attitude and mentality and the way that you direct your sort of point across and the way that you coach is very, very similar to Ollie's. It's very laid back and very sort of, you know, sort of like, you know, yeah, if you do this, you do that. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, sort of thing. So you sort of, you cover both the correct way and not the correct way, and you basically show that. You know, I mean, I know when I've been on coaching sessions with yourself, where I've sort of done things and said, okay, you know, can you show me? And you showed me the right way, you showed me the wrong way, and then I've done it myself, and it's all like, yeah, you know, it was all like a test of my own sort of like test of my own sort of time to like think, okay, but that's the way that I have been doing it. If I do it that way, okay, maybe that's not right, but then I've done it, and then you said, yeah, no, this is the right way to do it, and you've demonstrated it. And then when you see someone else do it, it's sort of like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's, but it definitely works. I can't recommend it enough. I mean, you know, I mean, like the write-ups and reviews you guys get is just, you know, absolutely unbelievable, you know, and I personally think like seeing some of like the techniques of other sort of coaching sort of businesses in the country, you know, you see some of the way that they coach is, I mean, is absolutely, you know, similar to yours and whatever. And hopefully, I'd like to think they've got the same attitude. I mean, the coach that I had before I come to you was just absolutely horrendous. He was just a complete shit show, really. You know what I mean? Absolutely awful. Didn't teach anything the right way or anything. I mean, I remember the first time I came to you guys and actually did a Greek course, and I think it was like a jumps course, or I think it was either a flow or progression course. I can't exactly remember, but I literally remember, and like Ollie turned around and said to me within like the first half hour, look, just move your feet forward more on your pedals, and you know, you'll notice this difference. And literally within the first half an hour of like going on this course and meeting Ollie, said like, I just thought, hang on a minute, I've been riding this way like this for ages, and moving my feet forward, the amount of control that I had, just more control I had over the bike was just incredible. It just made masses and masses of difference. It was just crazy, just little things like that, you know what I mean? Little tweaks can make the masses of difference, you know. So yeah, you know, definitely highly recommend it, you know.
Well, thank you. I think that's it.
Recommend you guys, you know, always, you know, great coaching providers, you know, what you do. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, man. You know, I will give credit where it's due, and I think, you know, the same as I think anyone, you know, deserves credit where it's due if it's needed to be given. I mean, there's also I know there's obviously not just with the coaching. I know also the other thing is like, I know that Ollie sort of has delved into it, and I know you have as yourself, which I will touch on. And I know there's probably not many people who know this about you, but you did do a short sort of period of working for Mojo Rising, which is for Chris Porter, along with Jack Perry, doing some suspension stuff. And obviously, I know that probably has sort of come in quite handy on with the coaching. I mean, have you found that to sort of be beneficial with working for Mojo? And I mean, I suppose, so I know Ollie has quite an extensive knowledge of suspension setup himself, you know what I mean, with obviously working with the guys at Sprung. So I can imagine, obviously, you know, all that sort of knowledge from that sort of like the four people has become sort of quite sort of a adaptable and obviously gained a new skill set to obviously people's setup as well. Would you say or not?
Yeah, no, to an extent, I think. I know a little bit. I think I could help on a fairly basic level, and help get someone in the right sort of place, and that's probably only if their bike's in kind of a semi-extreme sort of state before they come in. Maybe it's upping or decreasing pressures and things like that. I'm no expert. That definitely goes without saying. I learned a huge amount under all the guys down at Mojo and like Geometron, which was brilliant. Learned a huge amount there. Really enjoyed my time there. Does it link to the coaching? Like, of course it does. If your bike's not working perfectly underneath you, then your position's probably going to be a bit flawed as well. So, on odd occasions, if people do want a little bit of advice with suspension, tire pressure is another big one. Then happy to give kind of my personal opinion. Like I say, no expert, but I got a little bit of knowledge, and actually, the more I go on, that little bit of knowledge actually seems to be quite a lot more in comparison to maybe someone who's never really gone into it. So, it's good. It's nice to help people in a slightly more diverse, or not diverse at all, just a kind of a different route through it. But yeah, no, it's good. My time there was brilliant. Learned so much off the boys, and it's definitely helped me. And if nothing else, it's helped me on fixing my own bike and making sure that my workshop bills aren't quite so high. So yeah.
Yeah, so I know Ollie works quite close with Sprung, like, you know what I mean? And I know obviously one time when I was out with Ollie, we sort of got on the phone to Geometron and was talking with Marcel and Sam about suspension and stuff, like, you know what I mean? So it comes quite handy, you know what I mean? And the fact that like you guys are like, and obviously the guys at like Mojo, and even the guys at Sprung, I've spent some time with riding with some of the guys from Sprung who are so sort of adaptable and approachable, and everyone's just out to sort of support each other and have fun really, which I think is one of the great things about mountain biking, sort of mountain biking acts out in the field as such, you know what I mean? Everyone's sort of there and they're really sort of like cool people and sort of good vibe and good place to be, like, good bunch, regardless of the emphasis of what you're riding and what terrain you're riding,
Yeah, for sure. I think that's it, isn't it? You kind of touched on it loosely, like the general kind of community, no matter kind of who you speak to regardless of their profession within the industry, it's pretty good on the whole. It's a lovely community full of good people. So it's great.
I think really as well, where you guys are based, which is predominantly the Forest of Dean, and obviously having the sort of that as your base, and really is not a bad place to have as a workplace.
It's not a bad place, and living not far from there as well. It's not a bad place. I mean, I don't think my journey into mountain bikes would, or I'm pretty damn confident I wouldn't be riding mountain bikes if I didn't have the Forest of Dean on my doorstep, so to speak. So it's a brilliant facility, and I think there's a few exciting new plans for the area as well, which will be great going forward.
So obviously we've touched on sort of like coaching. So the next question I'm going to ask is what levels of people are you coaching? Because I've seen some little projects what you and Ollie have been working on together.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sort of talk too much about it. I'm going to let you do the talking. That's why I brought you on here. And I know obviously that Proride got a new sort of project what they're working with. If you want to sort of explain or talk about that, but firstly, just talk about who you're personally what you're personally doing, or with you and Ollie, who you're personally doing things with as a sort of duo or as yourself, etc.
So bulk of my work is for Proride, which is kind of your traditional coaching, and that kind of, again, like we spoke about, can be a huge range of rider, whether it's someone who's brand new to it, or I've been lucky enough to coach a couple of pretty handy kind of couple of like boys that have raced like Enduro World Series and things. So a real like range, like that's my bulk of my coaching. And I think what you're touching on now is the new venture that Ollie and like myself, like we've kind of like created, kind of come about, is the True Race Performance stuff. So ultimately that is kind of what Ollie has been doing with the top boys for a long, long time, and putting it into a package that we can give to more than just the top boys, and kind of the next level below, give the people a bit more of a holistic approach, maybe kind of a bit of, so that would kind of involve on the bike coaching, and then I spend the rest of my time when I'm not coaching kind of doing like mentoring calls and just giving people general advice and making sure they're happy, etc. And with all the races that are going forward. So it's pretty similar to what Ollie does to the World Cup guys that he works with, but just on a slightly drizzled down version that is accessible to those people that aren't on the World Cup team.
So is that one-to-one or is that group sessions?
It's both. Same with the coaching, it's both. So some of it we one-to-one, and then we'll basically run a traditional coaching session, but it probably is more tailored towards the race craft, if that makes sense. So the understanding of how to probably balance your time throughout the weekend, how to get the most out of your weekend, how to make sure that your track walks are good, you're picking the right lines, you've got the right sort of, you're aware of the conditions and making sure that you've got the right like mental and physical approach going into the race. And then obviously there then is some on the bike coaching, which we'll always touch on. That's the core of what we do. So that will always come through. And then that's kind of followed up by some mentoring work. So for that, for me, I work with, believe it's about eight riders between 12 and 15, I think, 15, 16. And for me, it's just keeping them on the straight and narrow, make sure they're enjoying their bikes. And again, it always comes back to that, making sure they're enjoying it, giving them any advice that I can for the races, making sure that they're sticking to the things that we've worked on in the sessions. So yeah, pretty diverse, super interesting. Also means that I do one less day on the hill, and I can do a day kind of like mentoring calls, which again gives me that balance so that I want to go and ride my bike again. I'm not subdued with too much on the bike coaching. I can go and do my mentoring calls, go and speak to these guys. And then it's like, I've got another day then in which I feel, excited to go and ride my bike. So it's perfect.
Because that's what I wanted to touch on when you sort of touch on mentoring. I mean, when you say that, I mean, what, I mean, I don't understand this sort of mentoring sort of like theory. It's not something that I sort of, I don't know. I don't get it. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not that I'm some sort of like, some like short plank in the stickers one. You know what I mean? It's just that I don't really sort of understand it and sort of get the emphasis of how it works. I mean, could you just elaborate on that a little bit more if you don't mind?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not entirely sure on an exact definition of mentoring, but I know for myself it is just some kind of short, kind of maybe like half an hour calls with these guys, or I'll even just, if they're close, I'll just pop round and just sit down with them for half an hour. And just for me, it's just making sure that those guys are enjoying their bikes, and if they're wanting to develop, that we've probably put a suitable plan in place that they can stick to, that they enjoy sticking to, that's going to help with their progression. They're all young racers. They've all got these huge aspirations. They're all brilliant bike riders. So it's just kind of helping them along the way, making sure that they're on the straight and narrow, enjoying their biking and actually getting the most out of themselves. I think that's probably the best way to put it, whether that's advice, maybe like you say, with a little bit of bike setup here and there, or whether that is coaching points, or whether it's making sure that they use their time more efficiently at races and making sure they're in the right sort of headspace before. It's pretty, it's a pretty wide area that we can cover, but ultimately it is just about keeping the guys and the girls happy, enjoying their bikes, and just helping them where we can.
I suppose really it's almost like saying, I mean, obviously I'm going on the emphasis that obviously quite a few of these people are obviously, like I said, they're the younger generation, and as we well know, I mean, it's the younger generation that are going to make the future, really. The same with the kids today. The kids of today are going to make the better for tomorrow, we'd like to think. So definitely, I think you've touched on that quite well there, because I also noticed that, I mean, at the moment, we've obviously having a sort of quite a lot of time in the day when I sort of like do avidly flick through Instagram and look at Facebook quite a bit. I mean, I did see last week, and I know you have been sort of for a while been sort of coaching the RAF downhill mountain bike team, haven't you? I mean, that's what I was touching on earlier when you said the stuff with like you and Ollie. That's what I wanted to touch on.
Okay, yeah.
That must be a bit of a buzz to know that you know that you've got like that these people are going out and sort of like civil servants and doing their bit for protecting us, and you're giving something back to them. That must be sort of quite a good feel good factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like those the RAF guys in particular are just brilliant. Some serious bike riders in there as well, and like
I've seen the videos, man. I've seen the videos.
Yeah,
they
serious
literally
bike
go as fast as they
riders.
they literally fucking drive them aeroplanes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were ripping, and they're the nicest guys as well. Like they come in, there's no egos, there's no nothing. They're just a good, solid group of guys that all enjoy riding their bikes. They're all good mates, and they are probably like me and Ollie did a back-to-back day with them at Cumcarn. And we had one group on the Tuesday and then one on the Wednesday. And yeah, probably the best 2 days of work I've had in a long time. Yeah, just great guys, and yeah, it's nice to do nice things for nice people, I suppose. So
you're not meant to say that. You're meant to say the days what I've done with you are always the best.
Well, obviously, it's a close second to you, though. You know that.
I'm only joking, mate.
No, it's
yeah. We had some fun.
Yeah, we've had some great sessions. Yeah, so no, it's yeah, like I say, my job pretty much just involves me working with nice people on the whole. Anyway, I think I quite often say to people that like half the time, in fact, way more than half the time, I would go for a ride with the person I'm coaching anyway because they're just a nice person, and that is like I think that 95% of the time when I'm coaching people, it's just a nice group of people that always come through, and yeah, it's brilliant. It's nice to be able to work with nice people.
So, is there anyone else you work with, obviously, beside the RAF team and obviously the little guys? Is there anyone else that you sort of work with?
We've done a bit of stuff with the RLC, which I think is, I hope I don't butcher this, I think it's the Royal Logistics Corps, maybe. So another kind of subcategory of the military. Right. And so we've done similar sort of thing with those guys. But yeah, we work with a huge range of people now, again, whether it's like actual kind of athletes, people who do it for their job, or just the beginners. It is a huge range. But no, we've worked with some cool, some really, yeah, I've met some seriously interesting people on the way. I'm not gonna name and shame them, but yeah, we've definitely
got one in front of you, mate.
Yeah, no, it's good. We've met some really cool people along the way, and it's continue to do so.
But that goes back to like I was saying earlier. You do meet some pretty cool people within the sort of like mountain biking community. Really, everyone's sort of, there's no malice, there's no sort of disgust, or everyone just gets on. Everyone's pretty cool, and you know what I mean. I mean, even though there's this sort of like, there's this irony and this like sort of thing of like, this people riding past on e-bikes, e-bike wankers and all this sort of stuff. But still, at the end of the day, we'll probably be on one day. I'll probably be on one day. But at the moment, I'd like to still think that I'm going to keep pedaling. Well, I'd like to get back to pedaling, but I will. But and I know there is a place for them, but it is what it is. I think it's more the fact that I think the hatred really from the mountain biking community is just all these clowns that ride the Serons and just basically just fuck up all the trails. What people take time and effort to build, whether it's off piste or even whether it's like sort of mark stuff.
No, it's I think that's it, isn't it? It doesn't really matter what people are riding as long as they're having a good time, isn't it? So they have their place.
So.
And I've ridden one multiple times and always enjoyed it when I have done. So yeah, there's a time and a place, and it doesn't really matter, does it?
But we're not here to scrutinise or fraternise against people. You know what I mean? It's all about people going out and having fun. And that's
it. Yeah.
So really, I mean, what else? I don't know. I mean, so what does? I'm probably going to sort of maybe finish sort of in the next few minutes. So what does the future hold for yourself with coaching and obviously riding your bike? What is the future for Ian Taylor within mountain biking with coaching and leisure riding?
Yeah. Well, hopefully to carry on for a lot longer, and that's both coaching and riding. My personal goal would probably be to start working with the start of the level of rider that we're attracting on the true race thing, and probably branching that into probably being more of a semi-permanent sort of job. So kind of gently kind of drift away from the traditional coaching and start to work with riders a bit closer on that kind of more personal level, a bit kind of how Ollie does. That's how I would love to do it. So I guess for me, I'm still building up that rapport with the guys I coach and trying to find the right people that we and I think we can work with on that level. So that's probably that. Don't know beyond that. And not maybe go back to racing at some point, but it's off the cards for a little while, that's for sure. But just carry on enjoying it, I think, mate. Just enjoy my work, carry on coaching, and just run with it from there, I think.
Cool. And leisure riding, what's your future for that? You got any future plans for that? Really? Any places you're going to be going, or? Yeah,
well, I've just booked a week with some friends in Finale Ligure in Italy.
Yeah.
At the end of May, so that'll be brilliant. I've been there and raced once or twice before, but actually going back now to ride my bike and just see the area a bit more, which will be great. So a few little trips away. Hopefully, going to get to New Zealand as well this winter, and go from there. Just lots of trips away, just lots of time riding my bike with my friends. I think that's probably the plan.
Current bike setup?
Current bike setup. Intense Tracer. Full 29, size extra large. What are we running? We are on, Fox 38, RockShox Super Deluxe coil, Shimano, a hybrid of Shimano Saint calipers to Shimano XT levers, and then a 12-speed drivetrain, SRAM kind of Shimano drivetrain. So, yeah.
Flats or clips?
Sorry. Good question. Flats for pretty much everything, unless you put a clock in front of me, and then I put the clips back on.
Okay. But that ain't going to be for a couple of years yet.
Not for a little while. I don't think. I'm just not craving going back to racing anytime soon, and just enjoying my riding for the way it is at the moment. So Not for now, but yeah, I've dabbled with the clips and the flats again. I've put clips on again recently, which has been nice. But for me, and the way I spend most of my time, the flats bring the slightly better technique, and I feel that's more important going forward for me, especially when I'm not racing.
Fair enough. Me personally, I prefer flats. You know what I mean? I just see too many catastrophic accidents on YouTube, like with people wearing clips and basically they fall off the bike and the bike goes with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's not always like that. I think that's a slightly bad picture of it, but it's they're pretty safe, to be fair, and you'll always unclip most of the time. I'm sure there's the odd occasion where you don't, but for the most part they're safe as.
Cool. I think we've pretty much touched on everything there, Ian. So I mean,
mate, that was brilliant.
Thank you, obviously, for giving me your time. I know you're a busy man, and like you say, you've got a lot going on with obviously Proride, and obviously, your two different sorts of coaching outsets, what you do with obviously, and then obviously your leisure time and everything else. So I really appreciate you giving us your time this evening. I know we've been talking about it for a while and trying to get it set up, and I'd like to have you back on the channel maybe in a couple of months when you've obviously been to sort of ventured out and had a bit more sort of leisure riding and stuff. If you're cool with that'd be fantastic. So
right. I am. I'm always happy to.
Thank you so much for coming on the channel. It means a lot to me.
No problem.
I'll have a chat with you in the background anyway. But listen. Again, thank you so much, Ian. I hope that everyone who's watched has been grateful for obviously Ian giving us his time, and obviously I hope that this is giving you a little bit more guidance into obviously what the coaching is and what benefits I've had from it, and obviously what Proride as an organisation and group can obviously offer you and what Ian can offer you. But obviously, depending on where you are in the country, there might be some local coaches to yourself that obviously offer the services the same as what Proride do. I'm sure they do. So as I always say, I would like to say thank you to Ian. Cheers, my man. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. So as always, I will see you soon, Ian. That's good. So no problem. Cheers. Thanks for your time, dude. And as I always say, this is the Leg Flag Fight Club. Over and out. Peace and love. Ta-ta for now. Bye-bye. And thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ta-ta.